Now, after having a long period without awarding this honor to anyone, I'm pleased to report that this year we have 2 recipients of the Lawmaker of the Year award, and the next is our keynote speaker, Senator Kirk Watson. Senator Watson was elected to the Texas Senate in 2007 and previously served as mayor of Austin. Again, you get the basic information from the handout at your table. It tells you that he currently serves on the Senate committees overseeing finance, health and human services, higher education, and nominations. He's also a member of the Texas Sunset Commission and has served as chairman of the Democratic caucus in the Senate from 2011 to 2015. What your program won't tell you is, again, what I would like to tell you about working with this gentleman. Senator Watson is an exceptional orator. He is passionate. He is a passionate advocate and a visionary like no other. He's a master at collaboration and creating consensus by building new and different constituencies and throwing away labels. And if you've ever seen him in a committee hearing, you know that he has this rare talent for being able to choose someone out and make them feel good about it. Living in Austin and being a constituent of Senator Watson's, I've been a big fan for a long time. I've watched him transform this city to have Silicon Hills, pedestrian-friendly downtown, and a first-rate medical school. And in keeping with my movie theme, I see Senator Watson as Ray Kinsella in The Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Senator Watson has built and continues to build a better Texas. In 2011, he laid out 10 goals in 10 years to transform the health and economy of Austin and Travis County. And he's achieving these goals one by one, from the Dell Medical School at the University of Texas to the development of a world-class brain health treatment, research, and education center in conjunction with the overhaul of the Austin State Hospital. In 2017, much to our thanks, he focused his attention on transparency reform. And he was the Senate quarterback for almost every one of our transparency initiatives, including sponsoring the Boeing and Greater Houston Partnership fixes, and successfully getting these bills voted out of the Senate not once, but twice. And this man is in the minority party in the Senate. You just don't do that. He performed the all-time Hail Mary when he added these bills and Chairman Hunter's date of birth, electronic communications, and failure to respond bills to HB 2328. He got the committee chair to suspend the rules to hear these measures in the committee, and then he got the Senate to vote the bill out with all of the amendments 30-1. There is truly nothing this man can't do. Sadly, the same obstreperous committee chair in the House managed to cause the demise of these measures. But in The Field of Dreams, not only does the voice tell Ray Kinsella, if you build it, they will come, but it also reminds him to go the distance. And I'm here to tell you, there's no one better to go the distance with in reforming transparency in the state of Texas than Senator Kirk Watson. Senator Watson, thank you for all that you do. I don't have a bat named Rosebud for you, but I do have the Lawmaker of the Year award. Congratulations.
Extraordinarily nice. Thank you.
So well deserved.
Thank you very much. We're supposed to go over here?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very nice, and I really thank you, Laura. I ought to say, I want to echo what Representative Capriglione said. Laura's tireless efforts during the legislative session were invaluable to all of our efforts. And folks, I want to tell you, it was tireless. Both she and Kelly Shannon worked very hard, and let us just say at very odd hours and all day long. I will admit that she caused me to panic a second when she, being compared to Jefferson Smith, that's a big deal. That's pretty good, right? And when she said she was going to make a movie reference for me, all I could picture was Danny DeVito. And so I'm thank you. That worked out okay. I also want to say thank you to my staff, Kelsey Erickson, who is doing really good staff work, taking a picture that we'll put out on Twitter today. But like Gio said, without the help of these two, we wouldn't be getting an award today. And so it's important that we recognize that. I want you to know I'm incredibly honored to be recognized by the Freedom of Information Foundation of Texas. And it touches me deeply, and it means a great deal to me. But I also want to say that to get to share this honor with Representative Capriglione is a special treat. I really deeply think a lot about his work in this area, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with him. So I want to say again, thank you, Gio. I appreciate what you've done. And the fact that State Representative Gio Capriglione and State Senator Kirk Watson, from the two different districts and the two different parties that we represent, our cooperation on open government bills this past session illustrates that government transparency isn't a partisan issue. It's a fundamental issue. As has been pointed out, and Jim Maroney said it very eloquently, it undergirds our representative democracy. He said it as part of his talking about the value of these liberties. But every concerned citizen and every engaged voter, no matter their ideological bent, or no matter what label they place on themselves when they go to vote in a primary, those people rely upon open government laws to keep an eye on their tax dollars and an eye on their elected officials. And it's our responsibility to ensure those laws work for them. And let's just get it out there. Let's just say it out loud. Anyone who holds themselves out as representing those citizens and voters, whatever office they hold, should be prepared to stand strong for open government laws. If they don't, they should be willing to declare who it is they're working for, because it's not the citizens and the voters. Thank you. Those citizens and voters, the people who are relying on government to work honestly on their behalf, also rely heavily upon responsible media outlets that are committed to serving the public good. And I'm just going to pause and say, boy, didn't we see some great journalism during Hurricane Harvey? I, for one, want to thank you, the journalism community, the good folks at the Houston Chronicle, the Corpus Christi Caller-Times, the Beaumont Enterprise, and I shouldn't start naming names, but every other Gulf Coast area local media outlet blanketed their communities to provide real-time information, big picture analysis, and truly compelling images of people coming together. Two Texas Tribune reporters whose outstanding reporting last year shined a spotlight on the conditions for such terrible flooding, a disaster like we had in Houston, were back on the ground as Harvey hit. And the Associated Press slogged through the floodwaters to check on the inundation of Superfund sites throughout the area, only to face the wrath of the EPA for its accurate reporting. So setting aside the dismissive and disparaging words of some, well, maybe one fellow in particular, please know that your work is valued and it's appreciated. The doggedness that was demonstrated by journalists during Harvey is going to be just as important in the aftermath. There will be critical questions about the health effects of contaminated floodwaters, changes in development rules, and the need for infrastructure improvements, as well as so much more. And of course, Harvey is just one single vivid example of the need for open government. Each and every one of you can give other examples. In fact, we heard several examples as the state bar justifiably recognized people and gave awards to these journalists that are here. But each and every one of you can give examples. Gio and I harp all the time on using the example of trying to get the contract between Enrique Iglesias and the city of McAllen because he was singing at some function in McAllen. We still don't know. And by the way, I still remain willing to sing at their next parade for half the price, whatever it is. But we tease about that, or I'm teasing about it a little bit, but I saw on Twitter just the other day how Uber and Lyft are fighting disclosure of their contract with the University of Texas Athletics. And UT's willing to turn it over, but because of court rulings, there's now an ability for a third party to say, we don't want to turn it over. So Uber and Lyft are trying to keep their contract with UT Athletics from being made public. Really? If you don't want to tell the people how you're spending their money, there's a very good general rule to follow. Don't take the people's money. But the truth is, and it's unfortunate, but everybody that is working on these kinds of things are going to continue to face some serious challenges as they try to answer questions, regardless of whether it's Harvey or some new age taxi service. Now, there's the first real challenge with this. Paul mentioned it a minute ago when he talked about the tech revolution. The first real challenge is one that I think is being created by technology changes and the immense following of social media. And the challenge is the ability to bypass questions from the professional media. We've seen, y'all know the example I'm going to talk about. We've seen, for example, the celebration of the signing of controversial legislation on Facebook Live without any outside media present. Now, I'm going to admit it. I'll stand in front of you. My name is Kirk, and I am an addict. I am addicted to social media. I love it. There are so many things I can say to my constituents and others through my Twitter account or my Facebook page. And I'm sure all of you really love and can't get enough of the pictures of my bulldog, Doc. Just wait until I'm a grandpa in a couple of months. The due date is November 29th. Frances Ellen Watson, her initials are F.E., so we're going to call her Effie. She'll call me Pop. I'm very pumped up. So, we're talking about social media. When we talk about social media, for things like bulldogs and what I'm sure is going to be the prettiest, most beautiful granddaughter, go for it. But for public officials doing public business, there simply must be a level of accountability. Social media should supplement, not supplant, the traditional ways people gain access to information, including allowing the responsible questions about what is being said in that forum, in that social media forum. Anything less isn't providing true open government for the people, it's dodging the people. But folks, you know this isn't a new phenomenon. It's just a new medium. We've seen a refusal by some to meet with newspaper editorial boards during campaigns. To some degree, in my view, that is a function of lopsided elections and no fear of general elections. We've seen it in statewide races, but we're also seeing it elsewhere too. And in some instances, at least at the legislative level, that's a result of a lack of fear in November that gets created by political gerrymandering. Now, I promise you, I could give you a whole different sermon on the damage of gerrymandering and what it's doing to our democracy. Well, this is one negative impact in my view. If you really can't be challenged, you can avoid talking to the media or editorial boards, or you can avoid inviting them to your Facebook Live efforts or anything like that, because you can only talk and get away with only talking to a very specific constituency. The people lose. Our democracy loses. The next challenge is the distrust that's been fueled by so many who casually dismiss news as fake simply because they don't like it. As they used to say where I grew up, and when I'm talking to this crowd, I'm talking to Noah about high water when I tell you that the Fourth Estate is an essential component of our checks and balances. It's already been referenced today. We need you to question. We need you to probe. We need you to pester. And I'll admit, there are going to be times when we disagree on that pestering. I'll admit that there are times you tick me off, because after all, I'm always doing it right and for the right reasons. And I'm usually always right. So I've now told you all you need to know about me. Don't bug me anymore. We're done. But seriously, we need the questions. We need the discovery. A couple of awards have been given here today for work that's been done or being given to journalists with the Dallas Morning News for work that was done on CPS. Well, I will tell you, we in the legislature did some real good work on CPS this last session. But I promise you, we would not have done as good a work had all the problems at CPS not been exposed. Frankly, the reason we are in such a mess at CPS is because without that exposure, there was not going to be the good work. We saw it in special education reforms as well. And it's all because, in my view, or at least in extraordinarily large part, because the media had exposed the state's failures. My only advice for overcoming the challenges, including the new challenges, is pretty simple. Diligence. Your diligent work has to be creative, thoughtful, responsible, and beyond reproach, maybe more than ever before. Now, another challenge is what I refer to as the forces of darkness. And this is where I was going to have Darth Vader music queued up. I'll tell you, Gio and I ran headlong into the forces of darkness last session as we did the work that's been mentioned by Laura as we tried to restore the Public Information Act and ensure the kind of access Texans deserve to their government. As has been pointed out, and I'll say it again, you all know this, the Texas Supreme Court issued 2 decisions in 2015 that undermined, in my view, the fundamental tenet of the Public Information Act, that about the public's right to know, in most cases, should prevail over other interests because information is key to accountability. That is, as Senator Adams said, that is what we think about when we think about the Public Information Act. Now, I will also say, I worry that to some degree, those decisions were influenced by the way we pick our judges, who have to raise money from donors and be elected. Again, that's another sermon. But ensuring access to basic public information was and still is simply too important to let those decisions stand. Representative Capriglione and I worked and fought all session to protect the rights of Texans to know how their tax dollars are being spent and what government is doing in the name of people. That right ought to be beyond debate. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and it isn't. Special interests that wanted to keep Texans in the dark descended upon us. I suggested it earlier, but let me be clear. Some folks want the public's money, but don't want the public's watchful eyes. And in the end, as you've heard, the forces of darkness won. Heck, you heard in the introduction, I passed bills that would undo those rulings in the Senate, both as standalone bills and as amendments on another bill. Some might call that belt and suspenders. And by the end of the session, my britches were still down around my ankles. I don't need to tell you folks the stakes in this game are incredibly high. It's not just a singing contract. It's not just an Uber contract. Every year, our state and local governments enter into thousands of contracts with private entities such as engineers, accountants, road builders, foster care agencies, food service providers, IT companies, social service groups, and many more. Those contracts, which together are worth billions of the people's dollars, dictate what we as taxpayers and people are going to pay. They dictate what we will receive in return for what we pay. They dictate who is going to reap the financial benefit. And now, in many instances, those contracts can be kept hidden from those who are picking up the tab. And the stakes are even higher as more and more of those dollars are being awarded to private entities as we do more and more privatization of previously public functions. The process is ripe for abuse, and we've seen it time and again from recent contracting scandals. Has a company failed to deliver on time and on budget? Has a state or local official struck a self-serving deal? Geo said it best when we rolled out our bills last January. People will generally behave better if they know someone could be watching. To be good watchdogs, the public must first be able to see the government contracts. So what's next? Here's where I can offer a little hope. As I mentioned earlier, keeping government open for Texans has been a bipartisan effort in both the House and the Senate. It's not often that people point out how I'm seeing eye to eye with the Liberty Caucus in the Senate. But this was an exception. In fact, it was a bit of kumbaya moment for me when almost every senator, as has been pointed out, joined in my Hail Mary effort to resurrect those PIA bills. My friends, that's a good foundation going into 2019. We also pushed through a resolution at the tail end of the session calling on the leadership in the House and the Senate to name a joint interim committee to look at this issue. If we can work through these issues in the interim, the forces of darkness won't be able to get the same traction next session. And finally, the people are with us. They might not know that once public information is no longer available to them, but you can tell them. We're committing to fix this problem come 2019. And I look forward to continuing our good work together and the good work that I get to do with all of you. So let me end. I don't know what the time is, but I'm told that we might have a few questions. But I want to end this way. I want to end by saying thank you to the Freedom of Information Foundation of Texas for the invaluable work you do. I want to say thank you for recognizing Representative Capriglione and me today, and thanks for letting me stand up here and preach one of my sermons. But more importantly, I want to say thanks for the work you do for our democracy. God bless you.